The gentle morning mist rolled over the green hills of Hobbiton, where smoke curled lazily from round doorways nestled into the earth. Bilbo Baggins sat in his garden at Bag End, watching the sunrise paint the sky in hues of pink and gold. His thoughts wandered to his upcoming birthday celebration, but more so to the golden ring hidden in his pocket, a trinket that had begun to weigh heavily on his mind. Below in the village, young Frodo Baggins made his way through the marketplace, gathering curious glances from the locals, who whispered about his peculiar friendship with the old adventurer up on the hill. The morning air carried the sweet scent of freshly baked bread from the local bakery, mixing with the earthy aroma of pipeweed from early rising hobbits. As afternoon approached, Gandalf's arrival stirred excitement throughout Hobbiton. The tall wizard's gray robes swept the dusty road as he made his way to Bag End, his presence drawing wide-eyed children from their homes. But something was different about the old wizard today. His eyes carried a shadow of concern, and his usual warmth seemed dimmed by some unknown worry. In Bag End's study, Bilbo's hands trembled slightly as he worked on his manuscript, the ring's presence in his pocket growing more noticeable with each passing hour. Meanwhile, Sam Gamgee, tending to the gardens below, overheard fragments of hushed conversations through the window that made his heart race with both fear and curiosity. Evening settled over the Shire like a warm blanket, but beneath its comfort, unease stirred in Bag End. Gandalf pored over ancient texts spread across Bilbo's table, his face illuminated by candlelight, while Frodo returned from his daily wanderings to find the usually cheerful smile heavy with tension. In the kitchen, Sam shared worried glances with his father, the gaffer, as they finished their evening duties. Outside, beyond the borders of the Shire, something stirred in the darkness. The stars seemed dimmer that night, and even the merry songs from the Green Dragon Inn couldn't quite dispel the growing sense that the Shire's peace was about to be shattered. As midnight approached, a black rider was spotted on the East Road, though none who saw it dared speak of it the next day. The preparations for Bilbo Baggins' 111st birthday transformed Bag End into a whirlwind of activity. Mysterious packages arrived daily, containing everything from exotic fireworks to peculiar gifts from distant lands. The entire Shire buzzed with anticipation as invitations reached the farthest corners of Hobbiton and beyond. Young Frodo, sharing his birthday with his beloved uncle, found himself caught between excitement and an inexplicable sense of melancholy, as if something momentous approached on silent feet. The great day arrived, with golden sunshine and a gentle breeze carrying the scent of autumn leaves. Hobbits from all around gathered under the party tree, their eyes wide with wonder, as Gandalf's fireworks painted the evening sky with dragons of flame and flowers of light. The feast reached its crescendo as Bilbo rose to give his speech. His eyes twinkled with mischief as he addressed his guests, his words growing increasingly peculiar until that fateful moment when he simply vanished into thin air, leaving behind nothing but gasps and confused murmurs. The disappearance sent shockwaves through the party, transforming the merry gathering into a hub of wild speculation. Meanwhile, in Bag End, Gandalf confronted Bilbo about his magical ring, their heated discussion echoing through the empty halls. The old hobbit's resistance to parting with his precious possession revealed a darker undertone to the seemingly innocent trinket, raising the wizard's concerns about its true nature. As Bilbo finally departed into the night, leaving behind his home and the mysterious ring, Frodo found himself heir to more than just Bag End. Gandalf's demeanor grew grave as he examined the simple gold band left behind, his usual warmth replaced by deep concern. He refused to touch it, instead instructing Frodo to keep it secret and safe until his return. As the wizard rode away into the darkness, Frodo stood in the doorway of Bag End, the ring heavy in his pocket, unaware that this inheritance would change not only his life, but the fate of all Middle-earth. The night winds whispered through the trees, carrying with them the first hints of change in the peaceful Shire. Frodo's peaceful evenings at Bag End grew increasingly disturbed by strange shadows dancing on the walls and unfamiliar sounds echoing through the empty halls. Gandalf's unexpected return one stormy night brought not comfort, but dread. The wizard's face, illuminated by the hearth's dying embers, bore grave concern as he examined the simple gold ring that had been Bilbo's parting gift. With trembling hands, he cast it into the flames, and as Frodo retrieved it, cool to the touch, ancient letters began to glow with an ominous red light. The truth of their discovery sent chills down both their spines. This was no ordinary trinket, but the One Ring of Power, forged in the fires of Mount Doom. Sam, tending to his garden, first heard the clip-clop of hooves on the road beyond the hill. The sound brought with it an inexplicable chill that made the flowers seem to droop. Gandalf's warnings about the Black Riders took on new meaning, as mysterious, cloaked figures began appearing on the outskirts of Hobbiton, their presence marking the end of the Shire's innocence. The local folk whispered about tall strangers in black asking questions about Baggins. Meanwhile, Frodo noticed his golden burden growing heavier, and sometimes in the dead of night, he could swear he heard it whispering in a language he didn't understand, but somehow feared. As summer waned, Frodo, Sam, and Gandalf worked in secret, preparing for an inevitable departure. Maps were studied by candlelight, provisions gathered in hidden corners of Bag End, and ancient lore was shared in hushed tones. But time was not their ally. One evening, Gandalf received urgent news that forced him to leave immediately, promising to return for Frodo's birthday. His parting words carried a weight that left Frodo sleepless. Keep it secret. Keep it safe. And whatever you do, don't use it. Days turned to weeks with no word from the wizard, and the shadows under the trees grew longer. Strange voices could be heard in the wind, and even the most ordinary objects in Bag End seemed to hold sinister secrets. As autumn approached, Frodo knew in his heart that Gandalf's absence meant something had gone terribly wrong, and the time for difficult decisions was fast approaching. As autumn leaves danced in the crisp morning air, Frodo Baggins and his companions slipped away from Bag End under the cover of early dawn. Sam's heart was heavy, watching the familiar green hills of Hobbiton fade into the misty distance. Their initial relief at their quiet departure soon gave way to an unsettling awareness of being watched. In the growing darkness, they heard the first haunting sounds, hooves on the road behind them, followed by an otherworldly screech that made their blood run cold. Diving into the undergrowth, they watched as a dark rider, cloaked in black, passed by on the road. The creature's presence seemed to dim the very starlight above. The encounter with the Black Rider left them shaken, but fortune smiled upon them when they reached Farmer Maggot's land. The old hobbit's warm kitchen provided a brief sanctuary, filled with the comforting aroma of mushrooms and freshly baked bread. Over steaming mugs of tea, they learned more disturbing news. Strange figures had been asking about Baggins. The farmer's dogs growled uneasily at the windows as darkness fell. Despite the comfort of the farmhouse, each shadow seemed to hide a threat, and every distant sound made them start. When they finally departed, Farmer Maggot insisted on guiding them through the gathering fog with his lantern, its warm glow a small comfort against the encroaching night. Their race to Buckleberry Ferry became a desperate flight as more Black Riders emerged from the darkness. Mary's knowledge of the local paths proved invaluable as they wove through fields and woods. The ferry appeared as a distant hope on the dark river, but the thundering hooves behind them grew ever closer. As they cast off from the shore, Frodo made a final desperate leap onto the raft, the Black Riders reaching grasp, missing him by inches. Standing on the gently swaying ferry, they watched the dark figures gather on the distant shore, their otherworldly screams echoing across the water. The hobbits huddled together, realizing their journey had only begun, and the safe walls of Crick Hollow seemed very far away indeed. In the darkness, Sam noticed how the ring in Frodo's pocket seemed to pulse with a cold energy of its own. As Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin ventured deeper into the old forest, the air grew thick with an ancient presence. The trees seemed to shift and whisper, their branches reaching out like gnarled fingers in the misty morning light. Merry, who knew these woods better than most, noticed something unsettling. The paths were changing, defying his memory of the forest's layout. The hobbits found themselves being subtly herded, pushed away from their intended route, by trees that seemed to close ranks behind them. The forest's canopy grew denser, filtering the sunlight into an eerie green twilight that made every shadow dance with possibility. Their path led them to a clearing where an enormous willow tree loomed beside a gently flowing river. Exhausted from their morning's journey, the hobbits decided to rest in its shade. As Frodo drifted between sleep and wakefulness, he heard Sam's alarmed cry. To his horror, he discovered Merry and Pippin had been swallowed by cracks in the ancient willow's trunk, which was slowly closing around them. The tree, Old Man Willow, had lured them into its trap. As Sam and Frodo frantically tried to free their friends, a strange singing echoed through the forest, growing louder with each verse. Just as hope seemed lost, a peculiar figure bounded into the clearing, his bright blue jacket and yellow boots a stark contrast to the forest's muted colors. Tom Bombadil, master of wood, water, and hill, arrived singing his powerful songs that commanded even the oldest of trees. With a few stern words and melodious verses, he convinced Old Man Willow to release its captives. The hobbits, shaken but relieved, accepted Tom's invitation to his nearby house, where his wife Goldberry awaited. As they followed their mysterious savior through the darkening woods, his cheerful songs kept the forest's malevolent whispers at bay, though the shadows seemed to grow longer with each step.